You can potentially resize your screen to just clear up that slide. We are based on the robust Google Hangouts platform, so you are able to actually resize the viewable window, which might clear up the pixelation, and I can control the bandwidth from this side as well, just to potentially clear things up as well. So look, let's get started. I'm really excited to take you through tonight's content. We are going to be focusing on Caloundra, which is in the Sunshine Coast area. Sunshine Coast is a real growth hotspot for reasons that will be disclosed and elaborated on by our special guest tonight, Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au. There's a lot of eyeballs on Sunshine Coast, a lot of reasons to potentially invest there in the short to medium term. Caloundra is a real focal point because it's got a great tenant mix. It's got a lot of tenant demand. You've got a lot of owner-occupier enclaves throughout lots of Sunshine Coast. So it's very important to make sure you're investing in an area that's going to have that tenant demand to enable you to, drive rental growth and yield forwards, where the population employment is going to be focused on and where that upside is going to occur. So let's go into that in a little bit more detail. I've got some really special guests joining us tonight with their insight into the area. I'll be going through a bit of a case study, looking at a few suburbs throughout the region for some investing insight. And if you've got any questions along the way, please feel free to jump in and shout out at any time. I will be getting to a dedicated question and answer section at the end, and rounding all those out for us then. Moving right ahead. A little bit about me. So I bought my first property over a decade ago when I was 19. I guess you can call me, and I will probably refer to myself as a DIY property investor. So I'm really all about investing in my own education and improving my purchase process, rinse, repeat once I have sort of hit on something that is working. In that process, I suppose I've gone in one direction and focused too heavily on capital growth and potentially to do with my employment, etc. Focus on that growth to the detriment of income. Had to recompensate and then focus on income once I was really trying to move out of the workforce a few years ago. The 9-to-5 workforce, cash flow was allowed. Allows you to do that, I suppose. So I guess I'm sort of coming back to the point of I've gone in one direction and overcompensated potentially and had to go in another direction. So there's no right or wrong way of investing. It's about assessing your situation, learning from it, and moving forward into the next property, the next process, the best way possible. So I'm always learning. We always are learning. I'm a DIY property investor and I like investing in my own knowledge. To that end, I formed Ripe House in 2011. I've got an IT background and I've always loved property, and it's a nice synergy between the two. So I love what I do at Ripe House and the community and the investors that we work with here. Just a little bit of sort of housekeeping. This is the second week where we have actually structured our webcast in this format. So we have learned from it. We have tried to tidy up the audio, which we had some problems with last week. Obviously, the visual quality, is everyone sort of seeing things okay? Let me know if there's any problems, etc. We might have to reassess things from the Google Hangouts platform. We have been trying to work on that. We have been gathered, we did ask in a poll last week which areas you'd all like to focus on in this week's event. So that's why we are looking at Caloundra. I think there was 36% of you from memory last week were asking to look at Caloundra as an area, followed up by Liverpool. So I will be asking again this week just to see if Liverpool is still the next area that you'd like us to look at next week. There will be a poll coming later on, so please jump in and answer it. Just for the moment though, I'm just going to go through some of the recent sorry, excuse me. Some of the recent. No, I did have another poll. Excuse me while I try and switch that on. We have just launched this week our flood zone functionality. So it has been about 3 months in the working to some degree. We have been talking and working with current users to refine and roll that out. So we're really proud and happy to announce that we did roll that out a couple of days ago. It hasn't been broadcast to the public, but all of you online who are Ripe House users, you were able to access it on Tuesday from memory. We had a phase 2 delivery of that today. So we started off by rolling out the functionality across the Brisbane local government area, enabling you to see high, medium and low risk flood lines and overlays on the suburb map. And then most importantly, filtering properties in and out geographically very quickly, all on market properties in and out of those flood zones. So you can quickly target areas or properties that are not affected by the flood zones, or potentially target properties that are affected by the flood zones and potentially priced at a lower point. So that was rolled out. We in phase 2 today, we rolled it out for Ipswich and the Sunshine Coast local government areas. Phase 3 will then start rolling that out through Redcliffe, Gold Coast, Moreton Bay, and then other regional areas throughout Queensland primarily, which is the most affected suburb, state region. Yeah, sorry, I did have a poll lined up. We just wanted to ask, and so probably pop it into the chat screen there, our new feature roadmap. So we have got a number of options and things that we're working on, and we can reprioritise those. So we did hear from a user, I'm not sure if Oritus is on the line tonight, this afternoon, who was wanting and really wanting us to develop a short list of properties. So you're able to grab a property, put it into your shortlist in the same way that you do at a suburb level within Ripe House, save that, and then be able to quickly look that up and compare the key metrics for that property. And it's a nice jumping in piece of functionality that you can use each day. So that's one of our pieces of core functionality we're working on. We are looking at supercharging and refining the suburb and street level searching. So really asking you some core questions at the root of your strategy. It's going to recommend the different tolerances to look for in a suburb, vacancies, yield, capital growth fundamentals, purchase price, quartile price spread, difference between unrenovated and renovated, all those key metrics. It's going to recommend the tolerances for each of those things at a suburb and a street level based on a short survey, and then it's going to allow you to save that as a custom setting against your account and really refine and supercharge that search process and make it unique to you and absolutely aligned with your requirements and suggested strategy outcomes. So that's another core piece of functionality. We are looking at integrating lot sizing and also zoning information, so you can filter properties that are only located in areas that enable subdivision, etc., and also meet the minimum block size requirement, so you can quickly zoom in on those properties in areas with a high price disparity, potentially with the tick of the box there for planning or subject to council approval. So that's 3 core areas of functionality we're looking at rolling out in the next few weeks. Please let us know which one you'd like to see first in the chat area, and we can try and prioritise that first for you. Moving forward, so tonight's special guests, we have been working really closely with Councillor Tim Dwyer in the last few days to get his special comments around tonight. Talking on the phone, and everything was ready to go yesterday. It has fallen through in regards to the phone interview for tonight. He has provided us with a document in regards to the questions that we were lined up to ask to refer to. And we are looking at grabbing him in the next 24 hours to do that and record that interview, and I'll pop that through via email to everybody as soon as it is received. So my absolute apologies. It was an unforeseen circumstance from Councillor Dwyer's side to have to withdraw his time tonight. As I say, I will be covering and reading to the content that he has provided to me, and I will get that recording through to you as soon as possible. Having said that, we're also hearing from Terry Ryder, so macro and regional suburb level growth fundamentals and insight for the Sunshine Coast area. Amazing insight there into Terry's research. And then Loretta Morgan is the principal of a local real estate agency who specialises in sales and also property management. She's going to give you some insight into tenant demand, which are some areas to focus on, and what types of property, etc., to look at in the area. So jumping right ahead, I'm going to get things in now, and we can jump over to Terry at Hotspotting, and let's have a listen to what Terry has to say about the Caloundra area. So this was pre-recorded today. Just with our system here in the webcast, it's difficult to get things organised and aligned to go together. Just going to go over and jump into into Terry's interview.
Special guest tonight is Terry Ryder from AU. I've got Terry on the line to give us a little bit of insight into the Sunshine Coast region, and obviously we are focusing in on Caloundra tonight. The Sunshine Coast region does feature in Terry's top 5 regional Queensland report, so he's got 10 pages of due diligence on the Sunshine Coast region, and then 4 other areas with comprehensive coverage as well. So definitely check out that report for further information at hotspotting.com.au. But joining us tonight is Terry. Welcome, Terry.
Hi, Jake. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, just drilling down, if you could just let us know, based on your report, a summary, I suppose, of what the growth drivers around employment and population, and obviously how that's going to affect capital growth in the Sunshine Coast area.
Yeah, we not only rate the Sunshine Coast highly in terms of Queensland locations, but we also rate it very highly nationally. It's one of our top-rated locations in our top 10 national best buys. The Sunshine Coast has, in the past, been more of a no-go zone than a hotspot, and that's because it's been an economy based essentially on tourism, which is always a very fragile and volatile economic sector on which to base your fundamental economy and property market. So it hasn't performed well in the past, but there have been some recent major game changes that have really changed the whole scenario for the Sunshine Coast, and one of those is the development of a new industry, the medical services industry, built around a new $2 billion hospital, which is now well under construction. And a lot of new medical-related facilities are springing up around that, creating a whole new employment sector that the Sunshine Coast previously didn't have.
Yep.
So suddenly the Sunshine Coast has gone to a whole new level, and we're certainly suggesting that people considering the Sunshine Coast for investment look in particular at the southern end of the coastal strip for a couple of reasons. One is that the more affordable areas are located in the southern coastal strip.
Yep.
And secondly, because those suburbs are very close to the main drivers of rental demand and buying demand, that is the new medical precinct, and also the Sunshine Coast University, which is growing and expanding all the time. The combination of those two things generates huge rental demand in the area. And one of the core suburbs for the southern part of the strip is Caloundra. It's in effect the regional centre for the southern half of the Sunshine Coast. It's a coastal suburb. It's got some lovely water environment, good beaches, and also some still safe water environments in the estuaries and feeding down into the Pumstone Passage to the south. It's been considered a little bit down market over the years, but that's changed in, say, the last 5 years. There's been considerable new development of modern apartment buildings. There's also been an upgrade of the restaurant and lifestyle facilities along the waterfront areas. And so the Caloundra market has taken a step up in the estimation and the perception of buyers. It still remains very affordable. Median house price is just over $400,000. and the median price for apartments is a little bit under 400,000. So it's at the affordable end of the Sunshine Coast market. Lots of growth drivers there, particularly that urban renewal sense that is going through Caloundra, that is upgrading and improving from the stigma of the past.
Beautiful. You're sort of touching on the southern end of the Sunshine Coast, so obviously Caloundra is sort of the area in focus, but just going through some of those suburbs, there are a lot of owner-occupied clusters and suburbs sort of on the water and the canal sort of system that does have a lot of owner-occupied. So Caloundra is sort of coming back to the, density, the higher densities of tenants. So which is obviously, if it's rating nicely for the capital growth fundamentals with lots of tenants, that sort of works well for us, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, that's right, and I think your Lighthouse research in terms of what you find sweet spots is focused in on an area of Caloundra where two-bedroom apartments are very much the most in-demand property type, and that's the mainstream market in that area. And the sweet spot that you identified is right on the doorstep of the high street of Caloundra. It's got a lot of major facilities nearby, major shopping, some schools just outside that precinct, bus transport services throughout that area, and just a short walk down to the beach, the waterfront, the restaurants and cafes on the waterfront. So it's a great lifestyle area that's got quite massive demand from renters.
Beautiful. What sort of time frame are you seeing all this occurring, Terry?
Well, I mean, the Sunshine Coast is really growing now. We've seen in the last 12 months the first sign of good price growth. Some suburbs across the Sunshine Coast region have had double-digit growth. Others have been perhaps 5 or 6. Well, we think it's just the beginning of a period of capital growth for the Sunshine Coast, and it's going to move forward from this point. I think it's going to gather pace, particularly when the big $2 billion hospital is finished and all the other facilities that are being built around it, including a private hospital and other medical services. Once all that's in place, people are actually working in those facilities and using those facilities. You're going to see a big uplift in rental demand in the suburbs. There's been easy commuting distance in those facilities, of which Caloundra would be a prime one.
Wonderful. So, it's great to get some insight, I suppose. For further information, we've got the top 5 Queensland regional report over at hotspring.com.au, and it includes 4 other areas, obviously, with lots of further information.
Great.
Sorry, just broken up there, everybody, but thank you very much, Terry, for your time.
You're welcome, Jack, at any time.
Thank you.
I think a key takeaway that we can move forward with from what Terry had to say there was the gentrification of the area. So as a regional area, what differentiates it from other regional areas outside of organic macro level growth? Gentrification of Caloundra, coming back to, and we did touch on this last week with Ipswich, talking with Paul Casali there as the mayor of the region, an entrepreneurial outlook by the council. So looking at a varied mix, not sort of putting all their eggs in one basket, looking at a varied mix to try and uplift the local economy, the local employment, and the local utility provided at a regional council level to the residents. So on that note, looking at potentially reasons where or how Sunshine Coast as a local government area can outperform other local government areas and compete for that net migration. I'll go through some of the pre-recorded notes provided to me by Councillor Tim Dwyer. He did mention it, and once again, as soon as I have the recording and able to put that, I'll be forwarding that through. A couple of the key points to elaborate around the vibrant hub of activity in the Sunshine Coast area. So Tim mentioned he's working hard to support the regional economic development strategy. So they've devised a 20-year outlook that started off in 2013. So, obviously only 2 years into that process. As part of that, they are looking at focusing on moving employment and increasing the arts and cultural environment within the area. So making it somewhere that people are choosing to live out of lifestyle choices, which obviously they're blessed with amazing geographic and natural wonders, but trying to increase the arts and cultural outlook of the area. So it is somewhere that people can base themselves with the employment that's in the region. In regards to, I suppose, how Caloundra, I did ask a question around how Caloundra is the focal point of this within the region, or is it? And Tim then mentioned the state-of-art Sunshine Coast Industrial Park is just off Caloundra Road. This is a real focus of employment and industrial employment in the area. Having said that, they are investing in the Caloundra Aerodrome, which after quite a few years of uncertainty, a master plan for this development site is now approved, and money is now being spent to improve the facilities, which is a real focus in the Caloundra, specifically the Caloundra area. Caloundra is also surrounded on all sides by some of the biggest developments to occur in the region. So Caloundra South as a development precinct, Palm View, Pelican Waters Town Centre and Oceanside are some of the key projects on the go at the moment. Skipping down, so what are some of the initiatives coming up from a local council level that are going to stimulate the employment and population growth? So I'm not just talking about population growth over and above macro growth. This has to be above and beyond. This has to be a net migration in real terms compared to other similar regional areas. So in Tim's response to that, he's focusing on sporting infrastructure. So it's referred to it as a Reserve 1000. If adopted, and it's in the process of due diligence, it's the development of an additional AFL and rugby field, construction of 3 additional outdoor netball courts, improved parking in the reserve, and extending the walking cycle paths. Focusing on the arts in an event centre with a capacity of 1,200 people. I'm literally going through multiple pages now of infrastructure spend in leisure activities and in cultural events. So it's basically making Caloundra potentially a focal point of lifestyle of people in the area, which I think is important. I guess what percentage of people would be commuting to even Brisbane? What percentage of people would classify, this is as an area of cheaper residents and, means to an end to sort of save up and get back into Brisbane. But if it's becoming an area, obviously the Sunshine Coast has got amazing sort of natural environment. If it's becoming an area that they don't need to then go back into the Brisbane CBD, it's a real focal and cultural hub in its own right. That's when potentially the entrepreneurial policy at a local council level can help that and keep people living in the area, even outside of the employment. So that interview with Tim will be coming through shortly. I did try and summarise his words and the dot points that were sent through to me, so I do apologise if that was a little bit unclear. Let's now hear from a local agent in the area. So Loretta Morgan is the principal of Jam Property. She, within the organisation of Jam Property, they obviously are a selling agent, but they do have a strong focus as property managers. So I wanted to talk to Loretta about what types of property tenants are currently demanding, particularly where, any places or pitfalls or areas to avoid, and how can we apply that in our investing in the area. So I'll just jump in and get this interview rolling. Just give me one moment there, excuse me. Oops.
Okay, our next special guest tonight is Loretta Morgan from jamproperty.com.au. Loretta is the principal of a selling and property management agency based in Caloundra, specialises in the area and is a local expert. So it's great to have Loretta on the line tonight. How are you, Loretta?
Good, thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So I just wanted to grab you, you're obviously an expert on the ground there, just to answer a couple of questions around what tenants are demanding, and then potentially some pitfalls in the area. So, we have heard from Terry Ryder around the infrastructure and employment and population movement. But what that means for investors, obviously we need to have the property tenanted, we need to have rent coming in. So what sort of segments of the market, types of property are tenants really strongly moving towards at the moment?
At the moment, we're finding homes are very popular. We've got young families, a lot of demand for young families, basic, 4-bed, 2-bath, 2-car.
Okay.
Other main requirements. Tenant demand is extremely high in the Caloundra area at the moment.
Sure.
With multiple applications on property and essentially a wide range of tenants lining up to move into properties.
With the Caloundra mix, you've obviously got a lot of units focused in and around the shopping district, etc. You've got a lot of houses over, forgive me my geography, northwest in the suburb. So is that where the family type tenant is demanding those houses over in that segment of the suburb?
So we've got some high performing suburbs within Caloundra.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but Caloundra is quite a large postcode, comprising of several suburbs. The following area hotspots, in my humble opinion, and are worth further investigation: Little Mountain, Aruna, Battery Hill, and the Caloundra city sort of centre.
Okay, yep. And obviously the Caloundra city centre will probably be unit sort of market, but the previously mentioned would be where the housing stock is.
Yeah, look, we're finding that the housing market is performing better than units as far as tenants are concerned and the yield. Okay,
yep, beautiful. Well, let's go through. I can take the time after we jump off the call, Loretta, and I can jump into the Ripe House tool, and if you can stay on the line potentially, and we can jump into chat with each of those areas. But we can try and break down exactly where the houses are located in the streets. What are some of the pitfalls do you think we should avoid looking for tenanted properties or tenanting properties in the area?
Well, I guess some streets to avoid. Here's the thing: no matter whether it's a quiet street or a main street, it all comes down to yield and what the demand is in the area and what the tenants are looking for, and also what facilities are available. So as long as you're doing your numbers and not rushing in and doing your research, you'll always come out on top.
Okay, yep. Are there any sort of transport to the dead spots or public housing to be aware of that's dragging down street appeal? Or
look, I haven't found so at this point. I can't comment on any areas that I've found that are pitfalls in Caloundra.
Okay.
Maybe moving further out of Caloundra, which we're not talking about today. There are a few.
Sure.
But certainly none that I can comment on. We're pretty impressed at how Caloundra is performing at the moment.
So the sort of the lower socioeconomic streets are sort of being brought up with the suburb overall.
Yeah, look, I think probably about 3 years ago, it was lower socioeconomic area. There was lower rents. Presentation of properties was a bit poor. The quality of tenants that we were finding coming through were poor. And as we've seen the market shift and investors coming into the area, we're finding that the rents have increased significantly.
Okay.
People are looking to renovate properties, and that is existing investors, but also investors coming in and buying properties and doing renovations to capitalise on the investment. But also newer properties with the likes of, Caloundra West, which is a huge area that Stockland is developing at the moment, and also Meridian Plains, and that's in the area of Little Mountain.
Okay, yep, wonderful. For any more details, so Loretta is the principal, once again, for Jam Property, which is based in the Caloundra region, and you can grab some more details or even contact Loretta there directly at jamproperty.com.au. Mobile number is on the screen there. Loretta, thank you so much for the insight. It's great to sort of get someone on the ground to help us sort of dissect the types of properties that might be available.
And you're most welcome, and thanks so much for the opportunity to share.
No worries.
Yeah, So I suppose to sort of tying those interviews together with the gentrification of the area that's happening and occurring not just now but in recent times. Touching on as Terry mentioned, that there already has been some growth in the area. Looking at a street level analysis of Caloundra CBD itself, there are pockets of over 25% public housing, which we can take a deeper dive into in a moment. Potentially the effects of those, the negative effects of those areas and lower socioeconomic areas has been brought up by the gentrification of the region overall. Not taking the red flag off completely, but yeah, it's sounding like because of the region's gentrification overall, those negative aspects of high public housing or areas to avoid is being mitigated somewhat. After the call with Loretta, we did actually mention, and she did mention that something she has noticed in recent times is very high body corporate fees. So especially in the unit market within Caloundra CBD itself, 12-15K body corporate fees per year, which is very, very high. She did sort of recommend a very particular niche type of product, which is 4 and 8 pack older type properties which have recently been renovated. She was mentioning over 6% yield, 6.2% yield for some of these 2-bedroom renovated properties. You've got $2,000 or $3,000 a year in body corporate fees. So that was one pitfall that she did actually mention after the recording finished in regards to units, particularly in the Caloundra area. Look, I just wanted to mention and take the time to mention specifically, I am bringing together multiple opinions in these webcasts. We are asking and putting it out to the audience which areas would things like to be focused on. Last week, obviously, you mentioned Caloundra, and this does reference back very closely to the 10 best buys across the nation that Terry has included in his report. So definitely check out Terry's report at hotspotting.com.au for further information. But none of the information provided tonight has been procured or advised or any payment received. I have tried to seek out experts on the ground. They obviously are providing services and where possible neutral and on the market advice. So this is not coming. I'm putting it together, I suppose, from a Ripe House perspective, where we're trying to help DIY property investors understand the market. How can we actually physically invest in these areas, which might just be a name across the country at the moment? How can we break it down? Find the local government drivers, the suburb which are going to be most suited to some of the reasons why Terry, as an example, would recommend the area, and then let's talk to a local area expert who has given some upfront advice tonight. So just in summary, gentrification is already and seems to have been occurring for the last year or plus. There has been price growth moving already. This is somewhat mitigating the pitfalls or negative street level associations with public housing and lower socioeconomic pockets in the suburbs. Look to Aruna, Battery Point, Little Mountain for 4-bedroom, 2-bed, 2-bath, 2-car houses targeting a family market for tenants. Also look to the Caloundra CBD for 2 3-bed units. Close to amenities, etc. Public housing, as I mentioned, has been somewhat mitigated. We will just have a look at street level public housing just to see if there are any very large red flags there in that regard. Yeah, I will just jump in now and let's do some analysis together for these suburbs, and let's have a street level analysis. I will have another go at trying to get this poll in place though, just while this is loading up. I hope this is coming through properly. So next week's webcast, where would you like me to focus on? Let's look at either Adelaide. Adelaide scored very highly on the property clock according to our Q3 research, right up there with Queensland. There is some alignment there with sales activity, days on market, rent growth. We can look and look in the Adelaide webcast across the Salisbury region, which has excellent, almost 8% yields in a lot of suburbs. Devon Parks, etc. We can look at some of the more blue chip, sort of middle rung Adelaide markets, and we can talk to some experts in the area there who can help us dissect the market to potentially purchase. Liverpool in Sydney, which is a shining light that is included on Terry's hotspotting reports in the Sydney market, as an exception and not overly heated with still some room to grow potentially towards the peak. So we can analyse Liverpool, and that was the number 2 suburb nominated last week. Then we can also look at rural New South Wales, Albury, just outside of Sydney, which is Wollongong, which has had a few false starts, but looking at with some alignment or other. So please jump into the chat box if you'd like us to focus on any other suburbs there. Currently, we've got Adelaide, Sydney, and Albury all looking neck and neck. If you'd like to, jump in and over and push that along. So Sydney's just jumped into the lead again. I won't go through a running commentary, but you can sort of get a little bit of a feel. And I will document your details there, Vinny, and pass them on to Loretta. So sorry, and Troy's just asking for the mobile number. So sorry, I'm just understanding what's going on now. So Vinny and Scott, thanks for sending that mobile number through to Troy. Loretta's mobile phone number there, if you'd like to contact and call through to her, is 0417 748 200. She's the principal of Jam Property, as I mentioned, and she is happy to take inquiries directly. Lorraine has mentioned the Central Coast thank you for taking the time to enter that in as another suburb there, Lorraine. At the moment, Sydney is ahead at 35% there. I will jump in though and start. We can do some street level analysis. So just one moment. I'll let that run for a little bit longer. Just on that, Lorraine, we are seeing some alignment with Newcastle, inner western suburbs or middle sort of western suburbs of Newcastle, that 350, 400k price point. We're seeing some sort of spiking in sales volumes in those suburbs. Days on market is quite low generally, but is still reducing and rents are stable. Potentially looking into those pockets through Newcastle. I have sort of heard mixed reports and quite a few investors using the Right House tools to look through the Gosford area. Recently, I haven't had that vetted and confirmed by other experts at a suburb level. The Terry Riders, John Lindemans, etc. A couple of you coming through with Central Coast. I might film a 5-minute case study potentially to pop you through with what we're seeing in the tool. Wollongong's just popped up quite a lot there in focus. This is another suburb or area that is is aligning across sources at the moment. And once again, Terry has been looking and recommending and seeing nice alignment with Wollongong as well. So that is why it is on the list there. So I'll let that run a little bit longer. I have loaded up my suburb analysis page here within Ripe House. So let's switch over to that now. Let me know if you do, when you do see that coming across. There may be a little bit of a stop here now. Okay, so I've just switched on the My Suburbs page. So this is the landing page you can jump into as a user of Ripe House. It gives you a quick look into the suburbs that you have shortlisted. You can monitor on-market real-time statistics for these suburbs, which are rolling numbers of sold median, yield, which is quarterly numbers, yield, popular bedrooms, and property type, days on market, etc. So a lot of quick look information there for you to take a deep dive into each suburb. You can then use this as a navigation point as well. So you can jump now into Caloundra. I will load this up first as the sort of the suburb on everyone's lips tonight. Obviously, we haven't made the decision to exclusively invest in Caloundra at this point. So there are potentially other areas, and we can use Loretta's feedback as a shortlist. So once again, Little Mountain, Aruna, Battery Hill, and Caloundra CBD were her 4 recommendations. And obviously, this might not be an exhaustive list. At a higher point, I like to see a minimum, an investment grade suburb, I suppose, is a way of classifying them, where we've got a critical mass of tenant interest in the suburb, a minimum number of tenants in the suburb to constitute that demand. Owner-occupier enclaves or new subdivisions with lots of owner-occupiers, just not going to cut the muster if we're looking at driving rents up over the short to medium term in line with growth and maintaining those really good yields, which you can potentially if you're investing in a pocket which has really strong tenant demand. So we will vet that across the suburbs that we look at on recommendation. I have loaded up Caloundra CBD here into the main suburb map analysis page within Ripe House. Each red icon is a current on-market property. You can track all of the listing history for that property. This is an aggregate from across the internet. We bring it together as in Google as a search engine and provide it in one place. And you can see over on the right-hand side of the screen here, individual toggles, which have just been added to the bottom is our new flood zone area overlay. So whatever you've got in your visible area here, we can click on this overlay. It will go away and find flood affected areas for what is on the map. So you can see here the green overlay is now applied to the map there. Lots of people coming through from Adelaide, by the way. So it's it's on. Everyone is asking for it there. So we'll see what we can do. Yeah, this is really important, I suppose, because one, it does show visibly where the flood zones are, and this information is able to be sourced from other sources. But the real importance of it is it displays on-market property activity over the top, and then it very quickly enables you to filter properties in or out of the flood zone. So if you really define flood zones as a no-go zone for your strategy, you can then filter on-market properties in or out of those flood zones, get rid of all the properties you're not interested in, and then really importantly, you can see how price changes. So if you've got 100 properties for sale in the suburb, 50 of them are in a flood zone, 50 of them are out of the flood zone, you can filter and view properties in the flood zone, see median price or the full price spread for those properties. Then you can quickly flip it over onto the opposite and see median price for properties that are outside the flood zones, compare. You're now assessing value for like for like. Really important, and this is really powerful new functionality across Ripe House. You can really quickly filter these properties based on flood zones and then see how price changes. So we'll demonstrate that in a moment. I'm just going to jump over now to Little Mountain. So you can actually navigate through Ripe House visibly just clicking on the suburb in the map, or you can click on the neighbourhood comparison button, which is actually going to go away and find the closest 10 suburbs for any one suburb across Australia. I did just jump into that a little bit earlier. Yeah, so this is going to go away. It's going to find the closest 10 suburbs, and you can see Aruna on here, Caloundra, Battery Hill. You can quickly compare key metrics, which are rolling numbers live today for each of the metrics for these suburbs, potentially finding price depressions close by, higher yields, more stable days on market or rental volumes, etc. A really nice way of navigating either visually or table-based, neighbour-based analysis. So Little Mountain, 4-bedroom houses are most common, which is in line with what Loretta has mentioned. Comparatively high number of owner-occupiers. So as a general rule, 30% minimum on a street level for tenant demand. Tenants in a street, we need to have that to be able to drive rental growth and yields forwards. If a suburb overall has few tenants, we're going to struggle to find streets that have those tenant clusters. So Little Mountain has 17.5% tenants. You can compare that to the Queensland overall, which has 33%. So you can quickly see it has lots of owner-occupiers. We may struggle to find sweet spots in this suburb that do have the requisite tenant demand. So this, I'm sort of jumping a few steps ahead. I've clicked a toggle on here, which is displaying street level information on the suburb. So in this case, the darker the yellow, the higher the level of tenant density. The darker the green, the higher level of owner occupiers. So some of these yellow areas through here does have the requisite 30% tenants, but not many parts of the suburb. When you combine that with rent per week, the purple here, the darker the purple, the higher the rent. The areas that are not shaded are lower than average in rent. We can combine and try and seek out areas of higher rent and then also higher yield. So 5.3% yield is actually quite high. 495,000 as a median, you're still getting 5% yield for a 4-bedroom house is really quite a nice scenario, making sure that it is accompanied with that strong tenant demand. So I've clicked on a lot of toggles there, and we can see a lot of information at a street level, but I'm really going to try and bring it together by clicking on our sweet spot analysis toggle here. And this is going to give us the top 6 street level metrics that we can assess things on. For this type of core middle sort of rung suburb, we want to set our minimum public housing amount at 10%. In this case, there's no more than 7.6% public housing in the street level. We don't need to worry about that. 30% minimum tenants, remember that was our requirement. So if I set that as minimum 30% tenants there, we remember we want to focus on streets that have lots of houses. We don't want to be focusing on the only street that has lots of units, etc. So I set this at, if houses are most in demand, which they very strongly are in this suburb, I don't want to have more than 1/3 of units. That's a general rule to make sure we're focusing on the in-demand property type. Let's focus on the streets that have median rent or above. We won't worry about income, but median yield or above. So what that's going to do, it's a very powerful combination when we've got strong tenant demand between 30 and 70% tenants, plus median or above rent, plus median or above yield. We've got a real sweet spot for tenant demand. So, you know, we might have high rents because you've got premium properties in the street, or you might have high rents because it's a standard type of property that lots of tenants are demanding, and therefore yields are usually going to be higher. So when you see the three things combined, it's very, very powerful. You know, we've obviously got houses set and also low public housing. That's trickled down vertically through our tolerances here. It's outputted one area in the suburb to focus our attention. So this one area in the suburb has 200 dwellings. Each of the areas defined has 200 dwellings. This is a very small section of the suburb that is an absolute sweet spot to further investigate. Now we can filter view flooding in the area. We have got a little bit of storm and flood risk over here to the west, not in this pocket that we're looking at. Now I want to filter only properties displayed in that yellow or orange area, safe from flood areas. As Loretta mentioned, I want 4-bedroom houses, and we said houses are property type. So this is going to go away. We've got lots of on-market properties at the moment. I only want to focus on the absolute key properties that are going to tick all of our boxes. And in doing that, it's having a bit of a think, and it's found 5 properties that it finds that tick all of our boxes. You can see here, you know, they're basically all only been on the market for less than or mostly under a month. Price spread between 495, 500k as the median of these 5, and 565 there as an upper quartile. There is only 5 in that sample. You can see the price spread very quickly, and now we can compare apples with apples, and we can be pretty sure we're going to have really nice strong tenant demand in this pocket. They have sort of cleared quite quickly through here. We can click on each property here. We can assess condition based on the images. The engine actually does that automatically using sentiment analysis. This actually learns, so when people override it based on disagreeing with the condition of the property, it will actually learn from that and refine itself in the future. It shows the full listing history for the property, suburb level key metric information, and that's trending. We can see area level information very quickly. And it goes away now and finds the top 6 comparables based on properties that are most likely to be in a similar condition, sold within 6 months, same bedroom, same house in a similar location in the suburb. It goes and finds those comparables. You can actually view that comparable. This is obviously the lowest in that range. Is it an inferior property? And in this case, I can quickly see that it is. As an example, we can remove that. And it's going to replace it with the next most likely property. And our job here is owning this process of comparable analysis, tightening this range up as tight as possible. We've got 6 likely comparables here between 475 and 508, very tight range. You know, we can own this process. We can check each of these individually. And then if the agent's coming back with a comparable, once you ask them that might be trying to push up the asking price, we can vet that and disagree politely, but then own this process to be very confident in our fair market value for the property. It will take those top 6 once we've curated that list and form a base valuation for the property. It will run it through a series of adjustments based on the location. Look, in this case, it has deducted 8% off it because it is a little bit far away from the closest school. I would assume it's probably pretty low density, this area. Everyone's going to have a house. Everyone's going to do probably the commute, and it's not inner city Sydney, etc. in a car. Dropping the kids off from 3.6 k's away is probably not going to be a big deal if they're going on the way to work. So I am just going to treat this with a little bit of subjective analysis and maybe discount these adjustments based on the stuff I know about the suburb. So I am probably going to be more leaning towards a 490 as a baseline as opposed to the 450, but it is displayed there as a bit of a sanity check for us to have. We can print all of that off in a report, and we can do the same process there for each of these 5 properties. So we've come across the whole Sunshine Coast local government area into some key suburbs. We've made sure it is investment grade. It has got the tenant sweet spots there, does avoid public housing, and has got lots of houses on the street. We've got 5 properties that out of the flood zones, similar types of property, we can now assess value like for like with these 5 properties. We can now move on potentially to next on our list. We can jump into Battery Hill as an example, and I am aware of time here. I might just go through the click to search button here while that was loading. Battery Hill in Queensland. We've got a really robust suburb search engine within Ripehouse. You can find in your catchment area the highest regarded capital growth, flipping or cash flow suburbs. You can order them in order of rank and then vet them one by one. So you can set, as an example, Sunshine Coast there as your catchment area. Battery Hill's loaded up, 25 on-market properties, 3-bedroom houses are most common. Let's do the same process. This is comparatively high number of renters, so we're probably not going to run into the problems we saw there with tenant demand. We can see exactly where the renters are choosing to rent in the darker yellow areas there. We can see potentially where public housing is. So only 3% public housing, so very low. This dark red area here, the darker the red, the higher the public housing. This particular pocket has 10.9%, so nothing to really dissuade us there with 10.9% public housing. This is probably a lower socioeconomic suburb at 283 as a suburb median, so I'm wanting to sort of wear 15% public housing as a general rule in these types of suburbs before you will start to see reductions in street appeal and tenant quality as in terms of vacancies and ability to increase rent over time. Let's just jump in now. There's a lot to go into in this page, a lot of really useful information. We can use this as our base for our due diligence day to day. But let's do the sweet spot analysis again. No worries there with public housing. Let's set 30% minimum tenants just quickly. Give or take a couple of micros of a percent, just for the purposes of the demo. Median rent or above once again, and median yield once again. So we've got 2 areas currently selected. So 1/3 of the suburb has been selected as this absolute sweet spot once we've set those tolerances. They are bordering each other. I love to see them when they are neighbouring each other. We can now view flood zones. Once again, no concerns there. We can now do our filtering on custom strategy areas outside of flood zones, 3 or 4 bedrooms. So Loretta did recommend 4-bedders. 3 bedrooms are currently most in demand within Battery Hill. So let's look at both. Let's only show houses. So you can see how, once again, we're going to get down to the absolute critical mass of our interest in the suburb. 3 properties have come back to us. We can do our value assessment on these individually. We are cutting out a lot of the noise in the suburb and focusing on the key properties that potentially are going to catch our interest, service our strategy, give us the upside, and help us to make clear, concise decisions. So we can add this suburb to our shortlist. We can save our custom tolerances, and we can save our property filter, and we can get back into this every day, and we can monitor this on-market activity every day, and we can see the changes. Are properties being discounted? Are properties moving in and out of the market? We can assess value very quickly, and we can pounce on them very quickly. I will just jump into Caloundra CBD I'm aware of time, but I just wanted to obviously look at Caloundra, which is a different market. This is one where 2-3-bedders are most common. It's a high density type living. There are areas of concern with high public housing, which potentially have been mitigated in recent times by the gentrification overall. Just putting that onto the map just quickly, this very dark area here is 27% public housing. So I probably would still have a bit of a red flag if we're buying remotely in that area, and just check and balance ourselves there with that. It may be mitigated somewhat, but it's still a reasonably dense public housing area there. Just remembering, let's do our sweet spot analysis for Caloundra. 15% max public housing is my tolerance for lower to medium socioeconomic areas. 30% minimum tenants. Let's go with that. Property type. So this is one where we have to select units instead of houses. Rent per week. Let's focus on the median or above, which is hard to find here because they are very close. And then let's drop this out to yield, median or above. You can see we've only 1 area selected there. That's probably going to be a little bit too low a sample size. I do like to break it out to 2 or 3 areas that are going to be our absolute focal point. So I do generally just play with these tolerances here until I find the breaking point. We might be able to adjust one of these tolerances very slightly and open things up into another area within the suburb. So if we open it up to 50% units, which is still, or above, still a lot of units, still a reasonably strong demand for units in this street. Then it breaks it out to 2, and that'll be great for our investigation tonight. So we can see how we've quickly then identified 2 areas within the suburb. We can now filter properties which are most in demand in those streets, and then we can form value assessments for them. So, just breaking all this down with what, referring back to Terry, Loretta, and the tool is saying, look for 2 bedrooms, potentially in these sweet spot areas in this suburb that are in the 4 or 8 packs, potentially with lower strata fees. This is a real sweet spot here with key amenities all around, and the tenant demand is really driving towards these units in this block with high rents, high yields, and high percentage of tenants. So, look, I have tried to skip through a few suburbs quickly tonight, and I am aware of time, and I can take and drill down for an hour in each of these very easily. Lots of functionality and power within this tool to do this street level analysis. So grab my time. We've got live chat integrated into the page. So if you've got any questions at any time when you're using the tool or thinking about using it, always jump in and ask us and grab us. We can, my staff here and I can always help you refine it, apply it to you, what you're trying to do, and obviously improve the software with new functionality rolling out very regularly. I'll just jump back now to sharing the slides once again. So do let me know once you do see that page. I am going to be sharing the slide. So you can see the Empower title there. Just confirm that if you can within the chat bar. I hope you sort of found that deep dive into Caloundra and the Sunshine Coast area beneficial. I hope it sort of made sense in tying it all together with looking at the macro and regional environment from Terry, and also the feedback from Tim Dwyer, Councillor Tim Dwyer, and then also at a micro level, listening to Loretta, what types of properties, what streets and pockets can we target within Ripe House, etc. Trying to break this down into a nice bite-sized chunk of information to help us in our due diligence and breaking down this market. Yeah, I suppose this is just a really quick slide, and I do cover this each week, but it is really important, I suppose, to firstly become a local area expert in these sweet spots across the nation, these hot spots. So, if we have opened ourselves up to the idea of investing anywhere across Australia, we can be very fussy. We can invest in these areas that have the highest growth drivers, the most upside, and match that to our strategy. And in doing that, we have to become a local area expert. So we have to arm ourselves with information and tools to be able to do that effectively, process this information quickly. If you understand the concepts and let the software, as in I've sort of just demonstrated with Ripe House, we are focusing in very quickly on the absolute cream of the crop. If you'd like more information, check out the Ripe House blog, which is ripehouse.com.au/blog. You can actually then jump in there and find the Buyer's Guide to Property Investment and also the Know Your Purchase Strategy ebook. It goes into a lot of information about how to become these local area experts and how you can use and leverage that information to then negotiate with the agent and potentially buy below market. But then once you have, just breaking down that process, just once you have become that local area expert, you do understand the local pricing dynamics. You can then jump in and perform condition assessments, making sure you're assessing that property like for like with others in the suburb. Find valid comparables, so the timely, condition, and location, the big 3 there. Location-based adjustments, shops, schools, transport, public housing. Let's get fair market value. Then look at the listing history, other comparables, etc., to form and potentially negotiate under the market. So that's my sort of process, 6 steps there to potentially doing that successfully in each market. A little bit of feedback from users who have been using the Ripe House software and the community around it of late. Guy is an excellent example of a successful investor who's been investing for over 20 years there on the left, recently purchased in the Logan City area within Brisbane. A lot of eyes and a lot of growth upside within that region in Brisbane. And then Dave Ward there on the right is the research director of yes.com.au as a buyer's agent, a very well-respected buyer's agent. If that's your, obviously buyer's agents provide an amazing service when done correctly, and when you're using a reputable buyer's agent fee for service, they can do a lot of this sort of regional, suburb, street, property level analysis for you, and then purchase and negotiate. And there's obviously a cost associated with that. Dave was very generous to provide this amazing feedback around our site there of late and recently. Just Ripe House is a subscription service, and we have recently opened up as a limited offer monthly access at $97 per month. You can join us here at Ripe House and use the software on an unlimited basis for that month, analysing across the nation, each suburb, becoming these local area experts, jumping in and accessing our full support via live integrated chat. I'm providing my personal email and phone contact details soon, so we can be your partners in finding and sourcing property, using the tools and sort of becoming and working together in doing that. Yeah, just as a quick thank you for joining us once again. So that is opening up $97 per month, just to help you use the tools and apply. So Lorraine, I will jump in and use the Central Coast as an example there, and some of the other suburbs that we didn't get the critical mass with the poll results for. I'll branch off and become, we are going to be running weekly super sessions where I will be doing these detailed case studies. So I'll be asking the Ripe House users what suburbs you'd like us to focus on at a larger level. So this is the one takeaway suburb for this week as an example. There are obviously multiple other suburbs that we could just as easily have been looking at. I will be looking at those in detail in those super sessions. So you are available and able to view those via the $97 a month price point. So how do you access that? I've just added a offer over on the right-hand side of the screen. Let me know if you can see that coming up. Okay, this software has really not been working for me very well tonight. I do apologise. Look, you can actually jump across. I will try and keep persisting with displaying that offer for you on the right-hand side of the screen there. This is actually a link directly into locking in that $97 per month offer. www.ripehouse.com.au/meet-ripehouse gives you the information there to access the monthly subscription. There is an annual subscription price point as well, which may suit you better, which is and provide more value to you in doing so. So definitely jump over to Meet Ripe House /Meet Ripe House there to lock in that monthly subscription offer. And I also will be sending out an email any minute into your inbox where you can actually click through and view that as well. I'll open the floor up now. You can use the chat bar and also the question bar. If something wants to come directly through to me, use the question. If it's going to be a group conversation and chat, use the chat bar. There is a little bit of a lag time, so I will wait a moment now while I see the chats coming through. You can access me directly through jacob.field@ripehouse.com.au. Once again, the URL there for locking in that monthly offer is www.ripehouse.com.au/meet-ripehouse. Accessing the weekly super sessions where I'll go through each of your suburbs individually with you, and we can use that as a real nice case study session to jump in with. And I really hope you found the information tonight, for those of you that don't stick around for questions, insightful, helping you to process the area and potentially investing there for success. Thanks, Cole. Mike, I am having problems turning this offer onto the screen here. It's really annoying. Yeah, as I say, I'll put the URL directly into the page where you can jump in and lock that in as well. Into this chat bar here. I'm just typing that in now. So that can be copy and pasted out of there. This software, we've been using it for a couple of weeks, and it's a funny industry, the old webcast software. This, we've got amazing sort of poll features and the ability to sync in with the chat questions, and there's some really nice sort of features of this software here in particular. It is built across the Google Hangouts framework and sends out recordings, etc. It has failed me tonight, and potentially the search now will have to continue. Yeah, Scott's just asked, are you thinking of putting fire zones in your service? So we have noticed in our research, Scott, that a lot of councils do disclose and detail fire zone information. We have looked at that, and it's going to be probably a lot more relevant to the Newcastle, Victoria, and even down here in Tassie, where we have a lot of bushfire risk. We are a map-based product. We're trying to help you understand things as locals would in certain suburbs, and obviously flooding is not as important in a lot of other areas as it is in Brisbane and the surrounds. So fire zones is definitely on our radar. We've just got zoning, block sizes, etc., a little bit higher up on that at the moment. The other are environmental impacts, so nature reserves, etc., and mining subsidence as other local red flags that need to be included in your due diligence. So as becoming that local area expert in certain areas, definitely focus needs to be on varying factors. So one by one, we'll start rolling these out, and fire zones is definitely on our horizon, and I can let you know directly the rollout potentially of that. So jump in. I know there is a little bit of delay there with questions coming through. If I don't get, thanks Lorraine, size of lots would be good, and the previous sales history. So we do have up to 3 years of sales history available. Anything further back than that, obviously it's not going to be really a valid comparable, but it is valuable obviously for seeing what the property previously sold for. So it might give you a baseline to start negotiation and understand that there might be a bit of pushback there from the vendor if you do try and negotiate below that, what they actually paid for the property. It is beneficial obviously for that. Anything, we don't use a comparable if it's outside of 6 months, unless you have very, very low sales volume in that area for that type of property, and you have to go back further. But you really are discounting comparables drastically if they are past that 6 month mark. So yeah, that's where sales history doesn't really become as relevant. We have given priority to trying to understand things at the street level in our research, in our development and time, as opposed to gathering, collating, and publishing the sales history for those properties. I'll just hold the line there for a little bit longer in the chat panel. Just jump in if there's any questions. If you'd like further details, there is a little bit of delay in the questions coming through. Troy's just asked, is there a webinar recording? I will be popping your recording directly onto our YouTube channel. So I'll be popping that through in the morning once it's been collated and vetted. And the audio visual is generally a far higher quality once you do jump into it there within our YouTube channel. And Melinda, sorry, I'm just reading these out as I'm reading, has just asked as well if we're going to be seeing a recording, and I will be popping that through, obviously, on the YouTube channel. So do look out in the morning for an email coming out with a link into that recording. So I will hold it up there. I really do appreciate your time, and I do apologise for going slightly over. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you found our insight beneficial, and once again, thank you to our special guests for their time. Tim Dwyer, local councillor for the Caloundra suburb, regional or postcode, Terry Ryder from hotspring.com.au, and Loretta Morgan from jamproperty.com.au. Thank you.